Hello, Greg Nibbler with Fox 12 Now, part of Fox 12 Oregon. Thanks for joining us wherever you're watching. Today, we've got something pretty important that we're going to be talking about, actually. It's something that's very important to Oregon voters, so much so that pretty much every poll ranks it as one of the highest concerns that people have, and that has to do with the houseless and homeless situation that is going on in our state and really the country as a whole. Well, the city of Portland recently announced something they are going to be doing to address this, and that is issuing a up to $50 million contract for 5 years to a company called Urban Alchemy. Now, they're based out of LA. They've been running camps similar to this, and they're going to be running some camps up here, some shelter centers, however you want to phrase that, that are going to be here in Portland. Well, we sent our own Adrian Thomas down to LA to take a look at how the situation is down there, where they run that currently. We're going to go ahead and play this package from Adrian, kind of talks about what he's been through, show some of the footage of that, and then Adrian's going to join us, discuss this a little bit more, go in depth with it, and find out what it is that's happening with this company and what could be potentially happening here.
Sleep Village in the south central neighborhood, just minutes from downtown Los Angeles. This site will be similar in size and structure to what will be set up in southeast Portland this summer. You can take a look at the site just here behind me. This is what it looks like from the outside. Those who've benefited from Urban Alchemy say they're grateful for the second chance at life the organization has given them, but reported problems at other sites and unhappy nearby business owners have raised questions. Regardless, this organization is set to have a huge presence in Portland over the next several years in the city's fight against homelessness. We met Cheryl Monaco at Urban Alchemy's Lincoln Safe Sleep Village in Los Angeles. She's been in the site for 2 months after experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles the past 4 years.
It's rough. I was robbed, I was raped, my car was stolen, I had all my identity stolen, my husband's ashes were stolen. These people brought me in because, I needed a safe place to be.
Cheryl says Urban Alchemy has helped her start fresh. Right before the pandemic, she says she lost much of her close family, had health issues, and ended up on the streets.
Every one of my family members died, and then my husband died, and I just couldn't handle it. I lost everything during the pandemic. I lost my home, I lost my car, I lost my motorhome, but now I'm rebuilding. I gotta not think about those things that I've lost and stuff.
Yeah.
And know that my family members are watching over me and want me to do better.
Cheryl says simple things like 3 meals a day, a clean bathroom and shower, her own space, and a caseworker or care coordinator helping her get documentation to start the process of finding housing has given her hope.
When I first came here and they gave me my tent, I cried. I was like, thank you so much. I got my own little place to stay and everything,
We also met Dolores Flores in the dining area. She's been at the site for 7 months and says Urban Alchemy provides a refuge from the risky day-to-day of living on the streets of Los Angeles.
I'm very, very, very grateful for this place. I lived out on the streets for almost 2.5 years. I've been raped, I've been beaten, and so me being here, I feel protected.
Urban Alchemy just came to an agreement for a 5-year, $50 million contract with the city of Portland to operate up to 5 mass campsites. Right now, the group is planning to operate at least 1 site in southeast Portland, which according to Urban Alchemy's proposal will cost $5.1 million per year to operate. With the large contract, Government and Community Affairs Director Kirkpatrick Taylor says the group is poised to grow in Portland and help those on the streets, but also stick to its core values of providing jobs to those who've recently gotten out of prison.
What's that going to look like over the next several years? Are you guys planning to operate up to 5 sites possibly?
Yeah, so while our services center around homelessness, the real role of Urban Alchemy is to create career pathways for the formerly incarcerated. We believe that the success that we've been able to see is because we actually center them in leadership, center them in decision-making places, center them in the middle of the work, and it allows us to really make progress and touch the issue in a way that probably we've not seen before. And so our hope is if we are successful, if we are able to show results, and if we continue to build rapport and respect with the community, both housed and unhoused, that we don't have any reason to not continue to grow.
The Lincoln Safe Sleep site has been open for about 1.5 years, and business owners we spoke with here in South Central say at first it was a rocky start. Now, there's mixed emotions. Steve Robertson is a South Central native and owns a burger and wings restaurant. He says he isn't thrilled about Urban Alchemy's presence and says the mass campsite was jarring for the neighborhood, but he says he and others have adapted.
With me being a businessman, it gives me some headaches sometimes, but with me being a person who understands the neighborhood, I learned how to understand the situation.
He says whenever there have been incidents related to residents in Urban Alchemy's site, both Urban Alchemy staff and other residents are reminded of the expectations by South Central residents and have generally been receptive.
We always sit back and tell them, when you're in this neighborhood, you do as this neighborhood do. And you're going to keep the peace in this neighborhood.
A few doors down, boutique owner Eloisa Torres told us earlier in the week she feels differently and says the campsite has brought issues to the area.
Ever since they came in, it got ugly, as in the way that two of my windows got broken. My door got broken too. People already think South Central is ugly because of the name. It's like, it's not like that, but if that's the situation, it gets harder like to let them know it's not ugly.
Back inside the Lincoln Safe Sleep site, Kirkpatrick Tyler acknowledges Urban Alchemy turns heads every time a site is set up in a community. Urban Alchemy has also faced legal troubles tied to other sites it operates, and Tyler says he knows this may make some question the group's credibility.
What do you say then to some of the critics who maybe have looked at issues with sites in other cities that have made the news, or possibly other homeless service providers who look at the work you guys do and are skeptical? What do you say to all the critics?
Yeah, I think we always welcome skepticism. That's healthy, right? It makes for a good conversation. It holds us accountable. It allows us to be, genuinely responsive to the questions people have. I would challenge when folks look at some of the reports that have come out, one, that they're usually editorials.
Tyler says despite the issues that have come up with the group, the success and rapid growth of Urban Alchemy speaks for itself.
You're always going to have critics. I think when you look at the work, when you talk to the people, that by and large what you find is that we're not perfect, but we try really hard. We really love and respect the folks that we serve.
Cheryl Monaco says anyone experiencing homelessness should open their minds to the opportunities Urban Alchemy can provide.
What would you say to folks who are either living on the streets or may have never heard of Urban Alchemy before, who have questions about this organization and maybe are skeptical? As somebody who's benefiting from them, what would you say?
I'd say bring it on. Bring it on. Come on down here and try it out. If you don't like it, you can leave anytime you want. You know, I mean, they got showers, they got charging stations, they got food, they got water.
And again, that site is set to open in southeast Portland early this summer. It's unclear at this time when and where other city-sanctioned mass campsites will open in Portland. In Los Angeles, Adrian Thomas, Good Day, Oregon.
All right, so there we go. Watching that whole report, Adrian, obviously joining us here now live on Fox 12 now. That's a lot that you covered there just in that amount of time, but I know you were down there for a while. And before we get into some of those specifics, could you walk us through what it's like going down there to report on something like this? What did you go through? What was that experience like even to get these interviews?
So what we had to do is we initially just reached out to Urban Alchemy just through their general media inquiry. I mean, they're just their media inquiry page. They are pretty established in both Los Angeles and San Francisco, so quite a lot of local outlets down there have done coverage on them. But we basically just reached out and, I told them who I was and, how they're coming to Portland and that the whole community has a lot of questions. We really want to see more about what they're doing and whatnot. So yeah, it was just a lot of back and forth for about a month, but we were able to get this shoot set up at one of their sites in Los Angeles that is going to be very similar to what will be in Portland. And yeah, we went down there and, I think, as I mentioned in some of my series of stories, that LA obviously has a huge homeless problem of its own that it's dealing with. It's it's Portland. It's similar to Portland, but obviously there's a lot more people involved. It's a lot more larger of a geographical area. but it was just really interesting to see how they're going to bring this to Portland. But one stark difference I think that I noticed just being down there and seeing what the issue looked like for the unsheltered homeless population. There's just certain pockets of the city where it's just huge. I mean, it's Skid Row south of downtown. I mean, we were there for a little bit, just kind of seeing what that area looked like. And I mean, it was thousands and thousands of people camping on the sidewalk. And in Portland, and one of the Urban Alchemy staff actually said this when they were announced as the provider back in March of the sanctioned campsites. They said that Portland is, the unsheltered homelessness is more spread out throughout the city, whereas in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco, they're kind of more isolated to certain areas, and we certainly noticed that in our coverage.
How did that feel for you going in there as far as a reporter and being in the middle of all that, this concentrated area, safety concerns, what was that part like?
Well, we were pretty safe the whole time. I mean, it was, especially some of the areas where it was highly concentrated, around downtown, there actually are a lot of different like mobile medical clinics, different homeless service providers, like out on the streets, like all the time. So, a lot of these areas were pretty busy, and, there were just lots of different people kind of going about their day, a lot of different service providers actually out there helping people. So, I mean, yeah, as far as safety goes, we were totally fine. And the Urban Alchemy site specifically, that's in South Central, which is kind of a little bit more residential, more neighborhood like. There were some businesses actually kind of in the area that had just their own like private security, so it was all fairly safe, but I could get how like from the outside it could be a little jarring at first.
So talking about the Urban Alchemy Center, just specifically, and obviously the city signing the contract, City of Portland signing the contract, so that they're going to be coming here. Going to that, and I know you had some great interviews there with some of the, I don't know, residents, the right word, but people who are staying there. Does this seem to be like it's really tackling the population that's local to that area, or are people from across the city finding themselves going to this Urban Alchemy Center? Because you mentioned, there's different pockets and populations. There's the LA side. Are they traveling to this, or is it really just kind of taking care of what's locally right there?
So it's kind of a combination. That particular site was first come, first serve. So, I mean, anybody could show up there. But they said, if they didn't have space, then, they would call kind of one of their partners with the city to see which shelter sites had space, that kind of thing. The site that's going to be opening up in Portland, at least at first, is going to be by referral only. So it's my understanding it's going to be outreach workers employed by the city that, are going around to some of the more like problematic campsites, offering these people these services and referring them to the sites. It's not going to be kind of a walk-in sort of place like the one where we were at in Los Angeles. Another major difference to note too is that the city has confirmed that the site in Portland is going to have 140 sleeping pods or pallet shelters, and some space for tents. So it's not going to be this kind of mass tent campsite, but more these pallet shelters, like they're essentially just little, permanent structure, sleeping pod sort of things. That was something that the city had to guarantee in order to get state funding for these mass campsites. And we asked Urban Alchemy about that, and, they said that is kind of a logistical thing that the city is handling, but they also said, factoring in how Portland is a lot more rainy than California, that's another reason why, like, they're obviously open to the idea of the pallet shelters. But that site too that we were at had 90 tents, and the one that's going to be in Portland is going to have 140 of the pallet shelters and then extra space for tents, but we'll be able to accommodate up to 150 people. So definitely will be a little bit larger than the site in Los Angeles, but similar in, just overall size and structure.
So with those, you have the pods, you'll have the space for the tents. What are the kinds of services are they planning to provide here? Is it the same as what they're doing down there? A little bit different here in Portland?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty much the exact same. I mean, folks will be able to have 3 meals a day. They have, access to clean bathrooms, clean showers. There's going to be a large staff of several dozen people who work as Urban Alchemy staff in the campsite, whether it's people who are, cleaning, providing the meals. There's, more advanced staff positions called care coordinators, which are basically caseworkers. So, they'll each have, and then this is the same in the Portland and Los Angeles site. So the caseworkers, they have, a group of people that are essentially their clients, if you will, and kind of just meet them where they're at and help them with whatever they're dealing with, whether it be a physical health issue, mental health issues, substance abuse disorder. If they don't have documentation like an ID card, social security card, they help them secure that documentation, because having documentation is key to eventually getting into housing or getting employment.
So that's a lot that's kind of going on right there that they're going to be providing. Looking at it, one of the part of your other interview was talking to the community, the neighborhoods and those businesses and their thoughts on it. Can you expand on that at all? Is there anything that didn't make it into there that you'd like to talk about? Because I'm really curious about how they feel about it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was very mixed. I mean, the gentleman we talked to in the video who owned the burger and wings spot, he wasn't happy with it at first. I mean, he's still not happy with it, but he says, we just have to adapt because this is the situation right now. And he feels like that he and other longtime residents and business owners in the neighborhood have established a good rapport with people who live in the site and Urban Alchemy. But there were other business owners we talked to. We talked to some off camera who didn't want to go on camera with us, but they said that it's really just brought lots of chaos to the neighborhood, and it's hard to tell for them when there are issues if it's people who live in the site, or perhaps what they have claimed, some of these business owners, is that people who live in the site attract friends or other family members to come to the neighborhood and camp out in cars and RVs and they're all together. So they actually bring in people to kind of on the outskirts of the neighborhood and of the campsite. So we observed maybe a little bit of that like several blocks away, but no indication that was really tied to the site. But that's a valid point from those business owners. I mean, some of them have said that they are dealing with a lot more vandalism now that site is there. But it's going to remain to be seen what it's going to actually look like and how that will pan out in Portland. It just seems like every neighborhood's going to be different, every site's going to be different. So we'll just have to see what it looks like and how nearby business owners, nearby residents, nearby homeowners, people who live in apartment buildings feel once the site actually goes up in Southeast Portland.
Right, and will it even be that much different? There's a lot of huge homeless population anyway around there, so I don't know if that changes things. Like you said, we'll have to see. One thing, with Urban Alchemy in particular, I know that they've had some legal issues that have happened in some of their other sites, which probably is common with these kinds of organizations. I don't know. You're dealing with a lot of people, and sometimes people are going to be upset. But can you talk to us a little bit about their specific issues?
Just some of the specific issues that in other cities. Yeah. So one of the sites that stands out was that Kirkpatrick Tyler touched on. This is a lawsuit that made the news, was in Sausalito in the Bay Area. There was a group of essentially people who lived in a site there who they got together and they filed a lawsuit against Urban Alchemy alleging mistreatment, and there ended up being like a settlement of sorts. And when Kirkpatrick brought that up, he said there were two sides to it, and I mean he obviously is going to defend the organization that he's representing. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are a lot of people employed by this organization, between 1,100 and 1,200, and I think each site is going to be different. I think each staff member is going to be different. Urban Alchemy acknowledges what they're doing and what they're trying to do is a risk, because it's it's an approach that has never been taken before. You're hiring hundreds of formerly incarcerated people, people who were formerly living on the streets in these high level staff positions, to run these sites. And it based on some of these issues in other cities, it probably gets very volatile at times, but from our observations from the site we were at, everything seemed fairly harmonious.
What are the next steps for them here in Portland, as far as when they get started?
Well, setup, they're essentially getting it set up, and from what we were told is the first site would be ready to go by early summer. They didn't have a concrete date yet, but they were kind of floating around a month and a half, something like that. We don't really know a concrete date at this time.
Any other things that you want to share just on a personal level? You don't have to, obviously, but just going through this experience. I mean, that's quite a lot that you did there over those however many days you were down there in LA. Just overall, did you have any kind of thoughts or feelings that you came back with from it?
Yeah. Well, I think what I took away is that homelessness, regardless of the city that it's in, is a massive, massive, massive humanitarian crisis. We're experiencing it here in Portland. Obviously, California is experiencing it big time. And, I think for me, it is, I think what I gleaned the most just covering this as a reporter is that homelessness, specifically innovative solutions like with what the city is touting with Urban Alchemy, is very polarizing. It's a very, very polarizing topic. You're going to have people who think it's a great idea, who think it's this is at least something, while more affordable housing is being built. But then obviously you're going to have other people who float the term homeless industrial complex, and that this is a waste of taxpayer dollars. You're going to have people in the neighborhoods where these sites are built who get upset. So it's there's a lot of different perspectives on this. And I think, as I continue to cover this and other reporters, I think if we can just, share as many of those perspectives as we can, and just, really try and paint a whole picture of each organization and different people involved. I mean, hopefully that can bring a little bit more clarity, but it's a very layered and complex topic. It's not very black and white.
Yeah, polarizing for sure. There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that are polarizing right now, but definitely, whatever solution comes up, there's going to be, like you said, somebody who's completely against it, somebody's completely for it. So, but reporting like you just did, going down there and actually being there in person, seeing what's happening there is so valuable. So just, really appreciate you bringing that in and getting those perspectives, from everybody that was on there. Some of that's really heartbreaking stuff. That's happening, and so it's just it's good to hear those sides of things, whatever it may be, and get some better ideas on it. So Adrian, thank you, for taking some time here today too. I know you're very busy covering a lot of other things, but to talk about this a little more in depth, I think is really appreciative and very valuable. So Adrian, thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
So there we go. That was, again, Adrian Thomas talking about the Urban Alchemy Center that's going to be opening up here in Portland. You can read a lot more about this at kptv.com. We've got all of Adrian's reports. I think there's even more stuff that's going to be coming out, but you can kind of read it and get more in-depth coverage there as well, especially some of the facts that are associated with that. So I highly encourage you to check that out. And again, I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. So this is our digital desk here at Fox 12 Oregon. That is the newsroom behind me. That's part of it anyway. It's much bigger than just that, but that's part of what's happening here during the day. So we've got lots of things that we're going to be covering reporting on this. And if you have anything that you think should get some more coverage, we do have an email address you can send into now. It's fox12now@kptv.com. Should have put it on there, but I'll get it on there next time. Fox12now@kptv.com, so you can send in an email, let me know about it, and maybe we can do a little more coverage on here as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in. There may be some more coming up later today. So, whatever platform you're watching on, wherever that is, hit subscribe if you can do that.